Hello, and welcome to the Charlian Forum. My name is Chris, and today I wanted to start a series where I compare the jobs of Final Fantasy's first MMO, Final Fantasy XI, to their counterparts in the current Final Fantasy MMO, Final Fantasy XIV. To kick the series off, we're going to be speculating on what we might be able to expect from the Beastmaster limited job that was announced to be coming to Final Fantasy XIV at the Tokyo Fan Fest earlier this year. Beastmaster was announced to be the second limited job coming to Final Fantasy XIV, which is currently only occupied by the rather contentious Blue Mage. Much like the Blue Mage, we can expect Beastmaster to have a hugely unique and separate mechanic that goes into its gameplay, but what might that look like? Well, by looking back at previous Final Fantasy titles, particularly Final Fantasy XI, and what the developers have stated, we might be able to get a loose idea of what we can expect. When it was announced, Yoshi P mentioned that the team is looking into developing a collection feature for the Beastmaster job, which gives us a relatively clear idea of how the basics of the job might function. Much like the Blue Mage has a separate spell book where your collected spells are stored, we can reasonably surmise that the Beastmaster will have a collection book of different beasts that it has tamed and can call forward in battle. If we look back at Beastmaster's first MMO appearance in Final Fantasy XI, we can glean a lot of information about how they might execute this collection mechanic. First and foremost is the Beastmaster's ability, Charm. In Final Fantasy XI, Charm was the most basic ability gifted to Beastmasters at level 1. It allowed you to target a monster and charm it, causing it to fight by your side for a time. The amount of time it lasted varied pretty wildly based on a huge number of factors, but most importantly, charming could potentially fail. Much like a Blue Mage might not always learn the ability that the monster that they're seeking, Beastmasters could potentially have an RNG mechanic on whether this charm works or not. If it's successful, then the beast could be added to the collection log. And if it fails, then the beast will attack the player and require you to fight back. This would of course require Beastmaster to have some basic skills to fight back with, and I think we can reasonably expect Beastmaster will be a melee job based not only on their appearance in Final Fantasy XI, where they focus predominantly on using one-handed axes, but also their appearance in the Bozja content, where they wield a similar weapon. Of course, we could always be thrown a curveball and get the ever-speculated whip as our weapon of choice, as that's another historically represented weapon for Beastmasters in previous Final Fantasy titles. The evolution of this collection system could potentially be similar to the Jug Pet system found in the Beastmaster's abilities in Final Fantasy XI. In 11, Beastmaster's charm obviously only worked if there were monsters around for you to charm, which may not have always been the case, especially during in-game fights. To remedy this, Beastmaster had access to various jugs of different broths, which would summon monsters to their side at a moment's notice. A carrot broth might summon a rabbit, where a fish broth might summon a crab, so on and so forth. Particularly of note were the high-quality broth jugs, which would summon more powerful versions of the monsters in the world, many of which were modeled after in-game NMs, or notorious monsters, rare spawn versions of the regular monsters that would spawn under certain conditions in the open world. An interesting way that 14 could combine these systems is through a framework of something that actually already exists in the game right now. Any guesses? That's right, the hunting log. I speculate that the Beastmaster will have access to a log of beasts that they can progress in a similar function to the hunting log, and also serves as an evolution of this mechanic as well as the collection mechanic by itself. Here's a really quick mock-up I made using the existing hunting log pages as an example. By charming a beast in the open world, you would unlock its page or slot in the Beastmaster's log, and having it participate in combat with various targets would progress that slot in the book. Once that progression was complete, you would earn the ability to summon the monster type using the applicable Jug skill. Let's say you charm a mole beast. You open the log and see that your mole needs to fight 3 tree slugs, 3 buzzards, 3 goblin hunters, and 3 fireflies. As you complete these, you obviously gain experience, and as each target criteria is finished, the mole page in your Beastmaster's log gains XP as well. Each rank with the mole page would achieve a new ability for you to command the beast to use. Once the page of the book is finished, you can move on to the next beast type available in the area. Much like the hunting log, the beast log would have multiple tiers of targets, and completing all of these tiers would give you the broth jug for that beast type, allowing you to summon the most powerful version of that beast available to Beastmasters. Before gaining this jug, you'll have to rely on charming the relevant beast type and refreshing the charm whenever it wears off. Since you're fighting increasingly difficult monsters to meet the criteria of the target book, you'll need to charm more powerful beasts as well, which pose more of a threat if the charm fails. This would continue the design philosophy of Blue Mage, where the open world content of 14 is intended to be the best way to level up the job. However, it allows Beastmaster to have a sense of permanent progression as a reward for mastering each type of beast available in the world. Not to mention, having the jug system would allow them to enter content without having to figure out how enemies from the open world can get pulled into instances. Realistically, using these jugs and summoning a pet would be no different from a development standpoint than a summoner doing their thing or a scholar calling out their fairy. From a gameplay standpoint, Beastmaster varies pretty wildly depending on which appearance you're looking at. In some of the early 2D games, Beastmaster could either tame the enemy or copy their skills, but because 14 is an MMO, I think the most applicable version of Beastmaster to examine is, of course, from Final Fantasy XI. In 11, Beastmaster obviously has their trusty companion with them in battle, but they also have their own weapons and capabilities. They are by no means backline fighters, often getting directly into combat and fighting side by side with their beast. Because of the power of these companions, Beastmaster was the only job for a long time that could solo its way all the way to endgame. For this to translate into 14 though, I think we actually need to look at another job, Summoner. I think that the Summoner rework is a pretty large indicator of how Beastmaster might function at a root level. I thoroughly believe that the functioning of the new Summoner has enabled SE to move forward with Beastmaster in 14. And let me explain. I fully expect Beastmaster will have some suite of attacks for them to use that don't involve their beast companions, like a melee combo or two and some attacks to defend themselves if their charm fails, or if their beast companion is killed in combat. However, the majority of their kit would likely come from abilities that transform based on the type of beast you have deployed, like how summoners' skills change based on which avatar they have summoned. You could easily see a format where we have a single target, AoE, special, and some kind of ultimate attack for each beast type with buttons that transform based on the beast that you have summoned or charmed. This would allow for a sense of progression through the Beastmaster experience where early charmed beasts result in a relatively static rotation with low variance in their gameplay. However, as you level up and gain multiple jugs, Beastmasters could cycle through them and use their skills before summoning the next beast in their collection, sort of like a bard cycling their songs and a summoner cycling their avatars. I know this idea isn't exactly perfect, and there's definitely a few holes in it, but I imagine that some form of this system is the way that will be realistically implemented, as the developer's attitude towards pet AI is definitely not on the upswing by any means. I think we can see this gameplay boiling down into two realistic options. Beastmaster as a dedicated DPS limited job, or, like Blue Mage, Beastmaster utilizing a wide range of skills that allow it to fill all three roles. You could imagine a world where some beasts function best and have skills to heal others, some are heavy single target damage dealers, some deal area damage, and some have provokes and mitigation abilities. This would allow the Beastmaster to adjust their playstyle on the fly, calling forward whatever beast best fits their needs at the time. If they were a pure DPS job, we can pretty much imagine it functioning similar to Summoner, where different beasts just have different types of attacks. As for weapons and gear, I think we've already seen enough to know what we can expect. Like I stated previously, all throughout the Bozja content we see various Beastmasters, not the least of which Lion, wielding an axe and a shield. I think this is not done by accident, and we will see Beastmaster using a single-handed axe in its main hand. The offhand, however, is up for a bit of debate. We could see a second axe for dual wield, the shield, or perhaps something more interesting like the long-wished-for whip. Much like a Beastmaster in Final Fantasy XI, Lion does not sit idly by and let his monsters do all the heavy lifting, so I think we should fully assume that this will be the case for our version of the job as well. As for armor, we can't really fully assume anything with any certainty. We can probably expect that Beastmaster will use either striking or maiming gear, but they could throw us a curveball and give Beastmaster fending gear, and give them various skills to take the threat off their pet, allowing them to serve as a tank while the pet does its thing, unleashing damage and healing abilities via commands given by the Beastmaster. As for appearance, when we look at Final Fantasy XI and the previous examples of Beastmaster, we see a common trend. Medium armor, often blue or brown with a color scheme, and white fur adorning it. We usually see a helmet with horns as well. What might that look like in 14? Well, maybe something like this. Something you may not know is that once upon a time, I was a part of a series of videos on a much larger 14 creators channel where I helped with speculation on how new jobs of 14 might be implemented. We did a video about Corsair and Geomancer and how those jobs might appear. We had planned to make a video about Beastmaster, but unfortunately it never got off the ground. So since I was making this video, I reached out to the artist on that project and got permission to show you guys these awesome sketches that they made. I'll put a link to their socials and show everything on screen obviously, but a massive shout out to ARIKATTEN Art for hanging on to these pieces and letting me use them for this video. Our earliest concept for the Beastmaster job in 14 was actually to try and make it a full job and not a limited job, so we had a separate system that we were working on called the Vial system that you can see here. but I think that we can sort of adjust this and become analogous to the jug system that I'm proposing now, which, now that it's a limited job, I think is a much more likely outcome. We've got the fur white accents, the axes, and the blue and brown color scheme carrying through. Ari included the visuals of this sort of stag horn rack to hold the vials, and I absolutely fell in love with it. It's such cool art, and they're so talented, it's just absolutely insane. I'm going to keep the images rolling here for a bit. So what kind of content can we expect to see? I think this is pretty obvious. We'll probably see some kind of long-term chase goal like the Beast Collection log I proposed, which will move the Beastmaster through the open world and give them an ever-evolving zenith of power to chase until they've fully mastered all the beasts of Eorzea. We can also expect to see some kind of analogous content to the Mass Carnival, which blue mages can access, giving us a suite of challenging fights to overcome and learn from. Of course, we can expect Beastmaster to be capable of entering content in undersized and pre-made parties, much like Blue Mage can, and if we listen closely to the wording of Yoshi P at the announcement, with Blue Mages, as they said they are, quote, proceeding with plans to allow you to play solo or in parties with other limited jobs. Unfortunately, it may be some time before we learn much more about Beastmaster in any concrete terms. We know that it's coming in the 7.x series of post-Dawntrail content, but we can't say for sure when it will release. I would say that I would expect its release absolutely no earlier than the 7.3x series, but it's far more likely to be in 7.4 or 7.45. What do you think about Beastmaster coming to 14? Do you think that my idea makes sense? Let me know in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe if you feel like I've earned it. I'll see you in the next one, where I plan to explore more comparisons of the jobs present in both 11 and 14, and maybe even some that haven't made the jump yet. Thanks for watching. Bye.